Welcome back, perfect peeps. I almost said perfect.dev again. We are in CodingCAD dev today, doing some live coding with AWS. Let's pull this mic in. Maybe everyone can hear me a little better. So once again, we do this every Friday. We're building out example Amplify app for AWS. I wore the new sweet AWS Community Builder hat that I got from AWS Community Builders. Definitely check it out if you haven't joined up yet. It's a very cool program. So just in a high level here, you can join me here at StreamYard and you can come code with me live. So let me bring up my screen real quick. It's probably really small. Okay. So on this screen, let me just show you real quick. There's this cool feature called Live Share in VS Code. And if you join me on this link, you can come on live and we can chat and actually work on different components as we go through them. So feel free, once again, jump on that StreamYard, come hang out with me. Otherwise, if you want to post in the comments, feel free. I'll try to... if you see me looking over here, that's me checking out the comments as we go along here. So my goal today, we've got this very kind of just templated out version of our scheduling app. So NatterDabbit has a pretty sweet React Native app, and we're kind of styling this same application for AWS Community Builders so that maybe one day we can actually throw a little expo, a little what's the word I'm looking for? Virtual conference. That's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, we're gonna go through and kind of start to look at schedule and speakers and build all of this out. Let me go like this real quick and bring up the Figma I carved out in case you weren't able to make it last time. One sec here. Got too many Figma tabs. Here we go. Okay, so in a nutshell, here is the AWS Community Builder Figma app, or Figma that we are working on. Here's the original app from Natter. And once again, here's kind of what we're aiming for here. This is what we're going to build out. And so I believe the next step that we're on, we have a pretty good shell of an application going on. It looks like we have some height issues that we need to kind of work on. Once again, we're using Tailwind for all of our styling, which is pretty exciting. I love using Tailwind. It's super simple to break into and use here. Okay, so the big thing today that we want to accomplish, even though we have this kind of admin section, we still don't have a login capability. And what I want to walk through in Next.js is how to go through AWS Amplify and actually add that login. Let's see here, one sec. Make sure no one else is trying to jump on and I'm missing them. Cool, no worries. All right, so let's take a look. I always like to dive back to the documentation. Even though I've done this a couple times and I've done it in Angular, I like to bring this up so that people know how to get to it. So the first thing I'm going to bring up is my console and look at the Amplify application that we've been working on. Let's see here. So we are working on Amplify example app. So here's our Amplify example. And then let's bring up AWS Amplify docs. What we're going to work through today is authentication. So if we go to the authentication page, we are looking for JavaScript. There's a couple different ways. And this is, I think Ali brought up, how are the docs going for everybody? I think one of the parts that I am not loving with the docs and the feedback that I need to kind of give back to those folks, it's very weird when you jump from like this getting started application and then start utilizing some of these UI components to switch. Yeah, see, it's doing it right there. Like I can't switch out of this Angular piece. I don't know why that is. So that's, again, it's kind of one of those things that we need to get figured out. And hopefully, yeah, we'll give them that feedback. So let's try to go back to React land, maybe. Yeah, it's so bizarre when it goes through this little cycle. And I just can't get it to jump. So here's the actual framework. Maybe if I jump to a framework, nope. Won't allow me to do it there. Maybe if I type it in up here, React. Yeah, that actually switched and gave me the actual drop down here. So definitely a little bug going on there. So hopefully I can chat with somebody on the Amplify team about that. Okay. So kind of looking at the different frameworks here, we are writing a Next.js app, which is in the React world. So we'll be utilizing this AWS Amplify UI React package to start. So if I jump over to the Authenticator piece, we are going to add this to our package. So it's been a minute since I've done this, so I want to make sure that we did not add this the last time. Go over to VS Code. Let's jump into our our package.json. That is the outer level. Am I in the right project? Yes. All right. Cool. So we do have AWS Amplify. It does not look like we have that package. So to add that in, they do have a yarn command here. I'm typically going to run npm, but if you're in a yarn space, of course, you can use the same. I'm going to copy that, go into my terminal here, and just run npm install. Oops, sorry, folks. I did not notice I was not sharing my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. It's ginormous on my screen. So, okay, cool. So we're going to add that package for UI React. Now, just jumping back here, to get this added to our React application, there's a few things that we're going to need to add. So from what I gather on a Next.js application, you really need to have this in your app, especially for the redirects that will occur. So let's take a look up here. So in pages, there's this _app. This is probably where you're going to want to define a lot of this. Now, this is going to bulk up your initial payload. So like when you do the build side of Next.js, it's always complaining, I think, above 150K. This is definitely going to drive you up around that 200 range plus for every single page. So after we kind of get going with this, what would be good is to probably take a look at actually creating the lazy loaded version of this, so we're not loading it all at once. I'm actually going to check out this getting started. Let's see if we have this part. I just want to see if there's something else. Let's check our status real quick. It's always hard doing this once a week. I never know where we leave off. So let's do this. And let's check out our Amplify status. You guys can see that. Okay, yep. So it looks like we have our API and our hosting set up. So what we're going to move towards is this next step of adding auth. So we'll do that now. Normally I would do default config with social provider, but I'm not going to take the time right now to go back through and add like a new application for the social providers on each platform. So we'll just stick with the default config and email right now. Obviously, hit me in the comments if that's something you guys are interested in. Natter actually has a really great episode that he did not that long ago for that too. So check that out. Okay, let's see here. Let's check the status again. So this status should tell us that we now need to create right here an auth. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and run Amplify push. And if you're unfamiliar with AWS, I always try to kind of loop us back through this. I should have done the --y as this took off. So I always try to like loop back in so people understand what's happening with Amplify underneath the hood, because I think a lot of times people are like, what is this black magic that's happening? And so if I take and open up Amplify console and I go to our dev backend, that should be right here listing out our cloud formation. And as it's doing the cloud formation pieces, what we're going to look at today is Cognito. And so the Cognito part of this, and I want to walk you all the way through this in case you ever want to get to it yourself. So if we're doing nested, let's see, resources. So there should always be, maybe it's not finished yet. Yeah, I don't know that it's finished quite yet, but when it finishes up out here, what we're going to end up with is a Cognito service that's available. So out here, if I do manage user pools, we're doing our Amplify example pool. And this is where your application actually hooks up. So if you go into your client settings, you'll start to see things like this with the client callback and OAuth scope and things like that. And so if I jump back into this login, this is the next piece that we're going to do. So we're basically saying, okay, AWS, we want to authenticate. Can we use your AWS Cognito to facilitate that? So that's kind of what it's finishing up creating here. So in the meantime, let's see here. Yeah, let's do this with Authenticator. So I think we actually need something above this. This is just the first part. Let's see. Yeah, we've already done a lot of that because we already have, or should have, here's our API and AWS exports. So I was hoping to show you directly in the documentation where this occurs, but I might just have to do it. Here we go. There it is. Okay, so at the very end of setup full stack, this actually has it kind of in a create React app installation. And what we're going to do is take, instead of source index, you're going to want to place this in your app, underscore app.tsx file, or JSX if you're not using TypeScript. We're going to go ahead and import Amplify, and then we're going to import AWS exports and use that for our configuration. And it looks like our Cognito has finished, or our cloud formation has finished up with that Cognito addition. Okay, so in AWS exports, we are actually going to jump out a little bit from pages. Where does this go? Pages, back into source and AWS exports. So now we have our configuration. And for those who are curious, our configuration, once again, looks just like this. We'll probably lock down that API key eventually, so it's using Cognito user pools. And now we have our Cognito user pool and web client ID. So now that we have all of that in the configuration portion, what we need to do is take each page that we want to wrap auth in and place this next part of authentication into. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but it's just kind of the way we put this together. So the next portion of this with Authenticator component, we are going to wrap, let's see, our admin index. So currently what happens in our admin index is we get this page. So we're on /admin and we're already getting like talks and content and things like that. I'm more familiar on how to do this on Angular, so this might take me a minute, but let's do this. So we have this with Authenticator. We also have an export default function for admin. And what it's saying to do here is change the default export to be with Authenticator. We're going to wrap the main component. So essentially export default function admin. And now instead of just admin, we say with Authenticator. And actually, I don't usually do it this way. I usually go like this and then export default with Authenticator admin, like that. So hopefully that's still just working. Let's go check it out. Sometimes it builds so fast I don't even notice, but there we go. Okay. So it's got this loading state, which is interesting. It feels like there's a failure happening in here somewhere. There we go. That was weird. Okay, so basically it's saying this admin page that we used to be able to get to directly, on the front end at least, it's going to be protected with this authenticator piece. So not having done this before, let's close that real quick. I'm going to create a new account. So here's my account. I'll do Alex at HMP or Alex at Coding Kit. Of 8675309. I don't know. I don't know that it matters that much. Create account. Cool. It actually sent my account code to my email. I'm going to stop the screen for a second and go check out my email real quick. Maybe. There we go. There's my code that I got. So in my email, I got a verification code that was triggered from AWS. And I'll flip back. And that code has this number in it. And now I can just confirm it. And so essentially what that did is said, okay, we know you're logged in now. We'll let you into this page. So if I refresh the page again, there shouldn't be an issue. We get right in. Now what that did on the back end and what I want to talk about is added a user to my, should be in here. Where's the refresh? So it added this new user and it's a confirmed account now. So the cool part here is we now have user capability essentially in the app. Now we don't have social login yet, but like I said, we can get to that later, no problem. Some other things that we might want to do as we build this app out, there's such things called groups, and these groups, what we'll probably want to have on our conference app is to have a true admin group, because this way we can put authentication on other parts of the app that also allow you to log in, but not necessarily be the person that can edit things like talks and stuff on the back end. So at this point, we probably want to know who this user is. So let's go back to our tutorial here. So this gets a little interesting. It talks about using this with Authenticator piece to this and the different flows. the cool part here is you can use the auth class, and here's where I think they need to update the documentation. So it talks all about how you can go to this API and things like that. And this API it's great. Like, it has a lot of detail to it. But I think the part that they're missing is that they should now say, go check out the UI components for the React app. So that's where I would actually position this documentation to head over to. So maybe I can talk to Allie about kind of that flow, because she was curious about the docs the other day. So in the authentication, there's this Authenticator piece. So we've actually already done this just by using with Authenticator over the entire page. Now, what you can do is just in parts of your page also apply this Amplify Authenticator component, and that component will block any part of your page that you need as well. So that's one piece of it. The other pieces that we need to talk about are like sign out, right? Now that we've signed in, we need the capability to sign out. So let's take a look. There should be a sign out button. There it is. Totally was missing it. All right. So from UI React, we have this Amplify sign out as well. So we have with Authenticator, and now I think we're actually, instead of doing it at this level, we're going to jump into our admin toolbar. And our admin toolbar header looks just like this, and we have this cool admin button and things like that. So instead of just having, I'm sorry, this is this level of admin, not this top level. Thinking. So actually, maybe up in our header on the top level, we should be able to pull this in. I believe up here we can do it too. So let's try this. I haven't done this before, but let's take this, drop that in. I don't think we'll need this Amplify Authenticator piece. I guess we'll find out here in a minute. So kind of where this admin section, this button is, let's create a new button. And actually right now it has profile icon too. So let's try just adding this right here. See what happens. So they have this massive sign out button. So now if I click sign out, cool. All right, so it looks like that portion is still working. So if I log back in, lets me right back in. We have the sign out button. We'll have to style that. Maybe we'll make our own with a sign out. So actually this is a good point that we could bring up. So instead of utilizing the entire component for auth, let's go back a second. And so this is some of those differences. Like AWS is actually supplying a decent component library that they have pre-built, pre-canned, and you can utilize it throughout here. Now, the other piece to this, you can style it too. So if you take a look, let's take a look at the root elements here in CSS. So right here, this primary color, if we didn't like that, we could say red, right? And so you can actually update anything at the document element style level to update these. Or what we could do is create our own button with a sign out. So let's go ahead and do that, because since we're using Tailwind for everything else, it would be pretty cool to do that as well. So let's try this out. We're gonna do button, do class name. Still do a button primary for now. I don't know that we have a secondary. Let's try this. I don't know if we have this. Can't remember from last time. We don't have the secondary yet. Let's do primary, and maybe we could do background, secondary. 500. Let's try that. See what that looks like. Sweet. That looks okay. It's probably not as A11Y as we want it, but that's all right for now. All right, we've got a question here. Let's take a look. Do we need to pass all apps component in the Amplify Authenticator function, which needs user login? Do we need to pass all apps component? I'm not positive the question fully there. Do we need to pass all apps component in the Amplify Authenticator function? Yeah, sorry. I believe it's Furquan. I'm not sure what you're asking there. Maybe the Authenticator piece instead of with Authenticator. Maybe that's what you're asking. Instead of doing that, you can actually just use this part of it, so you don't have to pass all of those functions. So maybe what we hit next here will actually become somewhat useful for you as well. So the next piece to this that we're going to do, instead of using that pre-built component, we're actually going to use the auth component. And so this is where, again, the documentation kind of goes two different ways. So even though they have this custom button text and things like that, it really gets away from our Tailwind button. And so if we go back to our getting started, and at the very end here where it had the auth class instead of the with authenticator. So let's take a look at that real quick. Here's all the different methods that we have, and there is a sign out method right here. So let's take a look at importing that. That is not going to be from there. So it's going to be AWS Amplify Auth, and then we have Auth. So I think this will work. We'll see. If we do click, or Angular World, guys, sorry about that. Yes, on click. There we go. JSX and Angular, they're interweaving in my brain, unfortunately. So let's try firing our function and just doing auth.signout. Okay, so now we have our kind of our tailwindy button, I'll call it. I don't like already that these are too close, but we're just testing functionality for now. So if I click sign out, boom, it does not work. Cannot read properties sign out of undefined. So it looks like I have not done the auth piece right. Let me try refreshing the page once just to make sure. Interesting. So not getting an error. It's not working. It's not complaining. Let's see here. All right, let's try it this way. I thought I could directly do it. Maybe that's just the typing. So we have auth sign out. Okay, let's try that one more time. Oh, well, that was fun. Something signed out that time. So log back in, sign out. I wonder if it's actually signing out. It's just not refreshing. Interesting. So there is something that is called hub that is also included. So possibly what's happening here is that the component that we normally use in the UI components for authentication, this sign out button might be doing more than I thought it was, and it's doing this auth state change as well. So we might have to do a couple things here to get that to work. What those things are, I am not sure of right now. So I might have to come back with that one, everybody. I think we would probably have to start listening to the hub that actually exists as well. So there's this thing called a hub on JavaScript data store, and it doesn't have it exactly. So there's this thing in here, and maybe it's worthwhile to kind of go through this for a second. So there's a hub, and this hub, if I were to put it in here, so you can listen to different events and callbacks. I think for now, I just want to push forward, and maybe we'll come back to that later on. Now we could probably really just cheat this thing and go, instead of this, let's call a sign out function of our own. One in here, sign out, function, sign out. Do auth sign out, and then we'll just do the router, so import wonder if this has a promise. A promise resolved is successful. So await. It's going to be an async function. We'll await it, and then we will do. You know what? Let's just try that for a second. I'm kind of curious now. I'm surprised it's not kicking this over. Let's see, Farcon. I mean, if there are multiple components in the app, do we need to pass all of the component? Any component that you end up using, you will have to import into the application. I hope that's the question you're looking for. Yeah. Good question, though. Okay, so okay, I've signed back in. I'm going to try this one more time just to see if it fires. Okay, I'm not going to mess with that anymore. Just going to call this good for now. We'll come back to that. There's definitely a sequence that's not happening there where it needs to refresh the entire page. I don't know if that's a Next.js thing that's occurring or if the hub listener is just not refreshing. I have a feeling if we tried to recall the actual route, we could, but I'm just going to leave it alone for now. Because what I really want to get to is some of the other cool stuff that's going on with Auth. So now that we have kind of these buttons and this admin button, what that's going to be used for long term, if we're on the core kind of this level, I don't really want to show this admin button unless you're an admin user. And so that gets back to that user groups. So let's start to do a couple things here. We also, on this auth piece, we want to list out kind of who they are. So let's see if we can do let's do a use effect, not in the header. Let's go back into admin. Okay. So back in our admin level here, I want to just check out what's happening on this auth. So we're going to need that same package. So we're going to take a look at auth, and we're going to do use effect. And we'll do, oops, let's import our use effect, and let's do auth dot user attributes, I believe. Current user credentials, current user info. I think that's it. So let's just take a look at this first off and see what happens. So we're just going to do this on page load and see what occurs. Oops. Let's check out the inspector here. Okay, cool. There's an object sitting out here. We've got some email attribute type stuff. So here's everything. Let me see if you can see that a little better. I can make it a little bigger too. So let's see on this what we know about that Cognito and the current user. This is everything that we kind of know at this point. So the interesting part here is that we could then turn around and grab kind of using either our subscription ID, anything about a profile, or this username is actually the same for Cognito. Could do either one of those things. The other things that you can do with this are part of those groups too. So that's that admin section for the user groups. I think next time we'll dive into that. I'm just going to take a minute probably over the weekend to refresh my mind on user groups. It's been a while since I've used them. So at this point though, I think we're fairly happy with this because we now can say, okay, I want to create a talk and I know I am this user, and so we'll go ahead and start creating that. So I believe or a few times ago, when we started to walk through this, we actually set up our full Amplify API. Now, one thing that we've been doing with this API is just kind of showing you how to access it without using data store. But what I'd really like to do is start to utilize data store without the requirement of our backend. So we could get pretty far along just using our local database, and I'll talk through kind of all the different parts and pieces and how that works. So I'm gonna go back to the docs because I always want you guys to be able to find this on your own. And I'm gonna look up data store for JavaScript. So here's the getting started for data store. It's pretty simple. So we've already got that part. We've already got that. We already created our API, and let's see here. We've already got a schema, which is awesome. Let's see. We already have our model, I think, or maybe we don't. Let me run that real quick. We may not have that. Let's check our source models. I know we have source and GraphQL, but I don't believe we have our source models yet. Okay, so cool. Bring this up a little bit. So I'm going to run this npm run amplify model gen. Of course, I don't have that script. Did they actually put one in here? So use amplify update. I don't know that exists. I'm going to run this again just to make sure we have the conflict piece in there. So yeah, GraphQL enabled data store. So let's just make sure that's in there first of all. Okay. So I believe that's good to go at this point. So Amplify model gen. I don't know. I think that's an actual command too. So instead of running this, you can generate model code with the following. Unfortunately, we don't have that one. So it's amplify, and then I believe it's code gen model. There we go. So they're suggesting in the docs to run something that it has a npm package already out there. So what we'll do is actually add this same command up into our package.json in case someone else runs along this and they can't use this for some reason. So we'll go out here, and in our scripts, we will add oops, Amplify model gen, and we will do amplify, oops, npm run amplify code gen model. Okay, so that's going to do the same command as what we ran. So if I run that same npm run this again, that's fun. So we probably need the dev dependency for amplify. I think it's amplified CLI. Let's see here. I'm gonna run this real quick and get one out. So let's do. I start these and download so I delete them later. So what I'm doing here, I'm just gonna run this script just to see what they produce out of it, because I'm pretty sure the CLI needs to be in our dev tools, but I'm not positive. So this is going to create an Amplify app just from scratch for us. All right, cool. So we're going to run that. We're going to do React. Oh man, this could get interesting. I thought it would actually create a new package folder. At least I was in download this time. So so let's take a look at this real quick. So here's their two items that they have. So it's, oh wow, they actually have a script that comes with it. So let's take a look. Amplify scripts. So let's take a look in our repo and see if this actually exists. So amplify, where was that? Amplify scripts, and then yada yada, and it does not. Bummer, dude. So let's open this and see what's in here. So I'm going to take and copy this because I'm kind of curious now what the heck this has in it. And oops. Sorry, I'm fumbling around a little bit here. I want this. Let's put that over here. Interesting. So they have this kind of little process that they run for CodeGen and Amplify Push. All right. I have not run that before, so that's interesting. So I usually do it from the CLI all the time. So let's take this off 1 sec and see what happens. So their npm run is actually these two scripts. So let's copy those and see what they do. I'm going to run npm run amplify model gen. All right, cool. So I think that's actually doing the same thing that we ran just with the direct CLI command. Yeah, any other questions? Sorry, one more question. I want to know, by using Amplify Auth, can we create our own UI instead of using default? Absolutely. So what I would recommend, I'm still working on my own tutorial for Next.js and the auth side of this for CodingCat Dev. However, Nader did a really great one. I'll try to put a link in the details. Actually, can I link? Hang on, let me see if I can link just direct in the comments here. Let me go find that on YouTube real quick. Authenticated. I think it was part of this one.
In this video, I'm going to be building.
I'm gonna share this. If it's the wrong one, it's definitely part of Natter's full library. So let me post that out. Okay, so that link right there will get you a lot closer to kind of your own UI. If that's not the right one, he did one. Natter did one with Tailwind as well that has auth in it. So it was really cool to check out. It was exactly what I've been working on. So definitely check that out. And for those of you who are not watching on that version, there is the link. I'll leave it up there for a second. Okay, cool. So yes, 100% you can do the auth however you want. That is the benefit of having that auth API. Wherever it went. So I guess we're a ways away from that auth. But that kind of that auth piece that we were talking about before and the auth that we have right here. So this auth right here has a ton of functionality that you can just utilize yourself with different methods and things like that. You don't have to use the Amplify components by any means. You can create an entire UI all by yourself. Okay, so where we're at. So we just kind of linked up data store. We've got our models now. So let's just check all that you have to keep in mind when you kind of make this shift. We've shown a lot of examples of calling AppSync basically directly, and now we're actually going to use a layer in between there, if you will. So it's almost like an offline first capability where we're going to use the local storage on the browser to do that sync with. The cool thing about data store is that you're also going to have that capability on mobile too. So if you're a mobile dev and you're checking this out, you can also use that kind of offline first mentality as we get going. Okay, so right now we are living in this talks world. Actually, I think we're in admin and now we're in talks. So this is the piece that we're going to kind of start to retool a little bit and check out data store a little more. So in here, we just had the capability where every time, and let me open up the code just so everyone knows what I'm talking about here. So we just went from index and now we're into talks. And theoretically, what we'll want to do is wrap this page with this same authenticator. Honestly, what I'd probably prefer, since we're on Next.js, is to do this with server-side props and get that kind of on the server and at the front end. But again, we'll get there when we get there. So a lot of this talks we had already built, and I had kind of walked through how to do the GraphQL calls. What I want to do now is utilize more of this data store approach. I've been using a lot more, and I think it's the way to go in the future. And I would probably argue that the AWS Amplify team would suggest the same on a new application. So we're going to dive down this path a little further. So we've run our code gen models. We have our talks model now. The first thing that we're going to do is this piece. So we need to start using data store to grab that. So interestingly, they don't actually have the import right there. Or if they did, I completely skipped over it. Yeah, I don't see it right there. So let me jump into write data. Okay, so here is how you import data store, and we're gonna swap out anything with our API and GraphQL pieces and kind of switch that out. So let's see here. So it actually looks like I was doing some config at this level before. I don't know that we'll have to do that anymore. That is kind of interesting. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and import data store. Now, one thing to keep in mind when we start to head down this road, instead of this API call, if you're like, oh, I'll just use the data store call, that's not quite that simple, because Data store requires like versioning of the data that's going back and forth. And if you were just to call the GraphQL like endpoint right now, or you thought you were calling it through data store, it's not actually calling out to that. It always uses your local storage, and there's kind of a sync that has to occur. So we'll talk about that as we continue down this. So for now, we have this on create talk, and that again is this button right here, this add talk. What we're going to do, instead of doing this and loading talks this way, we're going to pull that out. We're going to say data store dot save, and I believe we can put typing in here for talk. I think. Let's see here. No, not GraphQL models. I want to import that from. Ooh, I might need one more path. Let's take a look at this. What do we have here? We have everything in source. So this is listed as source. Let's switch that to, you know what? That's fine for now. Source star. Yeah. Okay. So maybe it is coming from the right place. Let's take a look here. It's just a little confusing on the naming. So I would probably change that in the future to not include GraphQL, because that doesn't really make sense. You know what? Let's do it now just for sake. Let's just call this Amplify going forward. And then let's do a global search for this. Let's replace that with Amplify. Looks like it's just in this file. Cool. Okay, that makes much more sense in my mind, at least. Which, it's a scary place. You don't want to go in my mind. So let's quickly try to get here. So we've got our authentication stored. We've got our talk. What's it complaining about? I don't know. So we've got talk. What we want to give that. So let's take a look over here real quick. So save new post. Okay. So we got to do new talk. And then the talk object needs to have name, all this stuff. All this stuff. Cool. So let's remove that. And then on the listing side of things, so that's our create side. We also want to go to query. Okay. Here is the query side of it. So this is how we'll get posts in the future as well. Or sorry, talks in the future. The same kind of methodology, and here's our load talks that we do at the very beginning. Instead of having this API call, we'll just do, let's see, const posts, yep, await data store and talk. Cool. And then that just becomes posts, I hope. Type talk array is not assigned to never. To never. That's a fun one. I want to query all data. Yeah, I think it should be doing that. What's it calling this thing? It's a talk array, set talks. Never. Okay, maybe that's our problem, is that we need a talk array. There we go. Okay, Got a little lazy in the TypeScript there for a minute, folks. So I think if I save this now, there shouldn't be any data that appears out here. Doesn't like that. Maybe. Can't resolve at Amplify. Hang on. Let's redo the server real quick. It's thinking about compiling. Come on. There we go. I hope that works. Okay, so you'll notice that now that we switched over to data store, we actually don't have anything in here. So the wild part, when we were talking before, we were talking directly with AppSync and everything was up in the cloud already. So what we can do to kind of prove this out, if I take Dynamo and our DynamoDB, and I jump into tables and I jump to talk. Oh boy, I don't know which ID we're running off of. My guess is the one that's not empty. So if I do empty this out, now that I've emptied that out, there's definitely no data in there. And I'll come back to this and show you just to prove that we're using in data store. So let's jump into our application and hit add talk again. And let's see what I broke. I don't know that that matters so much. Let's refresh this one time. Okay. I was not doing the load. So we have save, which should be a promise. So let's await that. And then after that, we will call load talks, which I probably already had in there one time. Okay, let's go back to this. Okay, cool. So now you see how fast it is too. And the reason for that, if I go refresh our Dynamo database, there's nothing in there right now. And if I come back into our front-end application, we've actually switched over to using, this is too big for me. Let's see here. Let's close that a second. We've actually started using this Amplify data store database. And if I switch this to by ID, I was expecting more than one. Oh, that's the schema model. What am I looking for, folks? Comment talk. User talk. That's the one. Okay. So here's our three different IDs. So the interesting part when you come into here, there's this notion of like this ID, and then there's also I was thinking there was versioning directly in here, and maybe I just can't see it because this thing's so darn big. Nope. Oh, there it is. So this version piece right here, you're always going to need this version when it goes back and forth to the actual Dynamo database. So for right now, what's really cool is we can continue utilizing this app, and we can kind of tweak our models and how we want to interact with our entire database. And then at the very end of this, once we're kind of set and we love what we're doing with data store, now that we have our authentication kind of working and our data store kind of working, the next step in this is to, if I look at this data store side of things, the next piece to this is going to be this syncing data to cloud. So next time we'll walk through how to set that up and we'll go from online or offline first capabilities, hence the in the browser database, and we'll start to sync those changes directly up to AWS Cloud. And so the really neat thing about this is that as we're kind of creating this conference application, a lot of times in the conference, and maybe not so true anymore, but it used to be the network would get pretty clogged up. So if we're in an offline first mode and you've already fetched this data and it's already synced, the great part is when you come into this, you should be good to go. You won't have to worry about it. And if we especially start to tweak this so that our schedule on the front end side, when we start to publish these out, on this side of it, we're also going to do static pages as well. So there should be some caching capability there too. So you could almost run this entire site offline if you need to within a conference. So look forward to next week. I wish I could do these every day and just kind of continue to build out this app, but I hope you're finding it useful. Definitely check out Coding Cat Dev. We're going to be releasing new courses and the new site, I would say, within the next few weeks. We'll see how it goes. My nights and weekends are pretty busy these days, but yeah, thanks for sticking with it. As always, hit that. I thought I was on screen. Hit that link next time. I feel like I'm talking to an empty room, which I don't love. Definitely would love some interaction back. Feel free to jump on live with me. So see you next time. Appreciate it. Thanks.